Here we're going to look at different types of programming languages. This is not by far all the programming languages. There are a number of them, but we're going to highlight basically some of the more common, popular programming languages. So if we take a look at the different levels here, we're going to take a look at the programming language levels, meaning this. So as you can see, we have a high level and low level language, and then we have machine code. So in a high level language, that is going to be the most user-friendly, meaning that the code that it's written is close to human readable language. So it's the most furthest away from the actual machine code. Low-level language is basically encoding some of the machine code into something readable. And if you take a look at the sample here, I mean, this is assembler language. A lot harder to interpret and program because there's a lot of stuff that you need to know in terms of how to program in that particular matter. Eventually everything gets converted into machine code, which is basically binary instructions for the processor to execute. And that's going to be all run on that hardware. So again, machine code is just binaries, zeros and ones. So if we look at the high-level language, we actually have two different types of execution models. We have one that's called a compiled language, and the other one it's interpreted language. So the compiled language, before we could actually utilize the code, it needs to get translated into machine code, basically into an executable. And then our interpreted language is going to be executed step by step when it is going to be done during actual runtime. Now, another quick note here is the programming paradigm. So that is basically the style or the approach of programming, which involves a set of principles and methods as well as concepts that helps you guide through in designing and implementing software. Now, this is just a quick sample of what they may be. Event-driven programming, procedural programming, and object-oriented. And there are a couple others as well. So most of the stuff that we're going to be doing is going to be and then what you see here is we have our compiled as you can see here, we have our compiled column and our interpreted column. And we're going to take a look at the compiled one first. So we have C programming language, which was developed back in the early 70s. And this is known for its extreme efficiency and working at the low-level programming capabilities. Still a very popular programming language. Next we have C++, which basically adds additional extensions to C and introduced the concept of what we call object-oriented programming. So that was designed in the 80s. And then we have another programming language that's referred to as Swift. So this is basically mostly designed at what Apple had adopted to utilize for their programming language for their particular devices. Now let's take a look at some of the programming languages that are interpreted. So we have PHP, short for Hypertext Preprocessor. And this basically serves as a server-side scripting language designed for web development. So the whole idea behind this is to create a more dynamic web page. Next we have Java. And this is actually very cool because the whole idea of writing in Java is you're able to, if you notice here, write once, run anywhere. It is basically platform independent, so it doesn't matter what operating system you are utilizing, you're able to run the program irregardless. Next we have JavaScript. Now this is yet another interpreted language, also used for websites to create dynamic content, basically to enhance user interactivity. Java and JavaScript are not related in terms of the syntax or usage. Again, they're going to serve at different spectrums of the program development. And then we have Python, which is known for its readability and being very simplistic. The dynamics of Python make it very easy to run code, execute it, and very versatile in different areas such as web development, data analysis, machine learning. So selecting the right language involves a couple design options, configurations. You might be working part of a team. You're going to look at the target application. If it's going to be something that's web-based or running on a smartphone. So there's a lot of things to look at. Different resources that might be available. Resources could include knowledge of the programmer and what programming languages they're familiar with, speed and execution requirements, and space and availability. So these are some of the things in terms of selecting the right language. Now, to give you a quick example in terms of how things may interact. So for example, web technologies. We basically utilize the web interface. So for example, something that you do with purchasing. So you purchase a product, let's say off Amazon. So you're going to start out with your local web browser. Your information then is going to get sent to a web server, which is going to be the front end server. In the back end, it's going to get sent to and processed to an application server that will create basically different queries and hit the database, and that's where all the information would be stored. Comes back with the result, implements basically different coding, formats it in HTML, and displays it back in your web browser. So all the stuff behind the scenes seems like a lot, but if you take a look of all the processes, how quickly information gets displayed on your screen. So when we're looking at a language design criteria, we want to make sure that the criteria includes things like readability, simplicity, consistency, also needing to be flexible and capable and scalable, and also be supported by a strong community. Now, unfortunately, sometimes that doesn't all happen right away because there's a huge disconnect, and there was never at the initial design that things will basically need to merge together or interact with each other. Take, for example, a hospital network system where we have one application that keeps track of doctors, the hours in their offices, another system that keeps track of patient records, another system that keeps track of medication and the prescriptions, and all that somehow needs to integrate. Sometimes it's not very easy to integrate things and keep track of stuff because this element keeps on growing real large and needs a lot of different APIs and configurations to all integrate and work correctly. So one tries to do their best, but sometimes it happens where things weren't fully thought of or new ideas came thereafter. So that's your quick summary of the different programming languages and what to expect.